Hello, I'm Pastor Joe, and I want to welcome you to Impacts, where I try to help nurture your faith in, your commitment to, and your relationship with Jesus Christ. You know, one of the values that we seem to have is independence. We like to be independent. We like to be able to take care of ourselves. We like to stand on our own 2 feet. We like to be able to handle our own problems and issues. We like to go through life without having to rely on other people. It seems to be sort of a badge of honor or strength for us. And I suppose that in some areas of life that's a good thing. But when it comes to living our faith, when it comes to living a biblical faith, it just isn't really compatible. And that's what I want us to spend a little bit of time talking about today. So come on, let's get started. It does seem that we in the United States in particular place a high value on independence. But when it comes to a biblical faith, it really isn't compatible. You know, the Greek word that we usually translate as church is ecclesia, and the basic meaning of it is the called out. The ecclesia is the gathering, the coming together of those who have been called out, who have been called to a new way of life. It's where the believers come together to be with one another. That's what the church is. It's a gathering of believers. In the Gospels, we read where Jesus sends the disciples out into the world. And He doesn't just say, y'all go, but He sends them in pairs, in groups of 2. And He does this for a couple of reasons. Now, one reason is that in that time period, it took 2 witnesses to corroborate a statement. So if what they are saying is going to be believed and taken as truth, there had to be 2 people in agreement. So He sends them out in groups of 2 so that they have those 2 witnesses. But I think there's another part of it. I got a feeling that Jesus knew how difficult it was to live faith day in and day out. And He knew that it's easier when we have somebody with us, when we have a partner with us, where we can encourage one another, walk with one another, strengthen one another, challenge one another, help teach one another, and all of that. So it's important that we realize Jesus sent the disciples out in pairs to be with one another and to help one another. One of my favorite images occurs after the resurrection. The disciples are out fishing. Jesus is on the beach. And as the day unfolds, Jesus and Peter come together. And it's their first one-on-one encounter since Peter had denied Jesus 3 times on the night of his arrest. 3 times as they were talking, Jesus turns to Peter and says, "Peter, do you love me?" You know, part of this was a way of restoring Peter. He asked him 3 times to bring about forgiveness and grace for the 3 times that he denied him. But I think there's also an image here of the importance of accountability. How we need people to encourage us. Peter had denied Jesus. Peter had stood firm to Jesus, said, "Jesus, I will never deny you." But yet, when the chips were down, 3 times Peter denied Him. So Jesus comes along beside him. He's going to walk with him. He restores him with those questions. He challenges him to love him and to care for others and all of that. And that's an important image for us of how we need to come together with people, because we're all weak in our faith at times. And we need to be there with one another to strengthen one another. You see, all through Scripture, I think we are reminded time and again of the need to surround ourselves with other believers. Now, on one hand, I think it's important to be a part of a local congregation, a local church, a local community of faith, where we gather together for worship and study, and we can have fellowship together and eat with one another and all of those things. We can cry with one another and encourage one another. That's important. But I think it's also important that we have an accountability partner, a faith accountability partner, someone that we can turn to when we're weak, someone that we can confide in, someone that's going to be checking in on us. And this accountability partner is someone that you would choose. You would agree together to be that faith accountability partner. I would encourage you, when you find that person, to agree to check on one another. Check on one another's participation and attendance at worship in church, because I think that is so important. Agree to ask one another about their daily walk. Are you praying regularly? Are you reading the scriptures regularly? Ask those questions and be honest with them when they ask you. Be there for one another. Have them be checking on one another how you're living your faith outside of yourself. How are you serving the needs of the community around you? Having a faith accountability partner will better help you to live your faith every single day, not just on Sundays. I think Sundays are one of the easiest days to be a Christian when we gather in worship, but Monday through Saturday can be tough because we're often on our own. So have an accountability partner. So that's my challenge to you, is to find someone that you care about and you trust enough to agree to partner with one another in your walks of faith. And then do it. Check on one another. Check on one another regularly. It might begin as every day or every week, but as time goes, it might be more random. I've got a friend who calls me randomly, but I know that if he calls me today, he's going to be asking me about my devotions and my time with Christ. And I might can get by one day saying, I've been so busy I can't do it, but if he calls me the next day, I better be ready. And so that helps keep me on track. Doesn't matter if it's daily or what, but be regular enough that you're expecting it. And then walk with one another. Again, be willing to be honest with one another, and then that way you're going to grow in your faith. It is so important to have that person that you walk with that will help hold you accountable in matters of faith and spirituality. Well, look, I want to thank you for being with me today for this video. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it will challenge you and encourage you in some ways. I want to ask you to do a couple of things. One, share this video with your friends. And then I also want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. That way, each time I post a new video, you'll get notified of that. Well, look, I do thank you for being with me today, and I hope that you'll join me next week for the next Impacts video. And until we get together again, I continue to pray for God's blessings to be with you.